Lummis, and no apology needed. I am interested in this discussion as well. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, perhaps with fracking we may find that the drinking water and groundwater contamination concerns would apply to any state that has or participates in fracking. But then once you look at individual states, you might find that there are issues that are unique to those states. And I'm talking, of course, about California. And so, Dr. Russ, as I noted in my opening statement, my constituents in California are particularly concerned about the possibility of man-made earthquakes. I represent the Hayward Fault. That's in my district, and it's a internationally known fault line. Nature and physics give us enough problems as it is. So how significant is the potential for induced seismicity, and what are some of the ways that we can sufficiently address that risk, as well as what do we know now and what do you want to know in the future? And I was encouraged to hear that there may be some funding that can be put towards further studies.
Thank you, Mr. Swalwell. Yes, induced seismicity we regard as a very important topic for research. We want to know more about how many earthquakes are occurring in areas where fluid is being injected underground, wastewater fluid is being injected. We want to know the rate in which those events are occurring and the size of those events. We want to know if one earthquake that's been induced can trigger another earthquake, and can it be a larger, more damaging earthquake. We want to know the relationship between the pressure and the rate of injection and the volumes of water and waste materials that are injected underground, so we can calibrate those rates against the potential occurrence of earthquakes.
What do we know now?
We know now that there's relationships between the occurrence of these induced earthquakes and the locations of subsurface injection wells. We know that it's important to understand if there's an active fault nearby injection sites, which could be, that fault might be ruptured and trigger an event. We know that there's been a significant uptick in the numbers of small to medium earthquakes in the central United States, which we believe are associated largely with induced earthquakes.
Great. And also, Dr. Russ, in my state, as in many, water is a precious resource, and fracking is an extremely water-intensive process. If these activities were to expand into Northern California, do you have a sense of where the required water resources would be obtained from and what the impact on local water availability would be?
Very good question. Water availability is one of the key research topics that are in our draft research report. Each area, as you mentioned, is unique in terms of its occurrence, the nature of where the aquifers are and where the various units that contain water, whether streams or subsurface sources. So we would have to take a look at that individual area to determine what are the actual occurrences and the problems. Also, seasonality of the weather in a given area affects water availability, so the weather is an important component as well.
Will the research plan also examine alternative fracking fluid technologies that would be less harmful to the environment?
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay. Also, will the research plan examine recycling of wastewater that would be produced in the fracking process?
I'm not sure if that's if I have the knowledge on that one.
Okay. Any other witness? Dr. Teichmann.
Yes, I believe the research plan will include the ability of recycling wastewaters as a way of preserving water acquisition and not introducing additional chemicals into the hydraulic fracturing process.
Great. And going back to where I started for all witnesses, would you agree that at least right now, as I mentioned, we must proceed with extreme caution, but that we may find that some states are better suited, if you can address the groundwater and drinking water concerns, that some states may be better suited for exploration through fracking rather than other states?
I'll take the first stab and then turn perhaps to Dr. Russ, and to state that certainly the geological formations are different in different states, and the approaches to be taken, therefore, should be dependent upon what the different states' geology is. For those who are traditionally drilling much deeper than the aquifers, then I think we would expect that practice to certainly be more positively environmentally friendly than those that might be drilling into them.
Great. Actually, I'll yield back the balance of my time. Thank you. I wanted to ask Mr. DeHoratiis DeHoratiis. My understanding is that investments that your office has made in hydraulic fracturing as far as research and development decades ago can be directly linked to the oil and gas boom that we're seeing today. And if that is the case, would you say that this provides a clear example of how federally funded applied energy research can have a major impact on establishing or accelerating the development of new energy technologies that are critically important to our nation?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, DOE was working in shale gas research back as early as 1978, before it was even a thought in most people's minds that we could produce oil from shale formations, or oil and gas. So DOE is very proud of that. Our efforts today are taking it what we think is the next step forward, looking at mitigation technologies. How can we do it and improve? Just as technology has advanced on the production side, we want to make sure that technology is advancing on the performance side. And so we're looking at better ways to reduce the amount of water that we need. How can we reuse water? How can we find alternatives to water? What about the air emissions? Can we do things in that area? Can we better understand the impacts of wastewater injection that may induce seismicity? So we're doing research in all these areas, and we feel that this is a very important research topic for us.
Great. Thank you. And I yield back the balance of my time.